The dim glow of the bedside lamp cast elongated shadows across the room, illuminating the deception I had been too blind to see. My hands clenched at the sight before me. An open phone, a thread of messages that dripped with lust, betrayal woven between every word. My wife, the woman I had built a life with, had given herself to another man. My chest tightened, breaths shallow. Disbelief turned to rage, then something colder, sharper. A calculated numbness settled in, whispering the only truth that mattered. This wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. Heron, the name flashing on the screen, was familiar. My so-called friend, a man I had welcomed into my home. Their exchange wasn't just words. It was an invitation, a promise of secrecy and stolen pleasure. I scrolled further, my stomach nodding at the photos she had sent him. A sleek black dress clinging to curves only I should have touched. Lips parted, a tease of what she had undoubtedly given him. My hands trembled, but not with sadness. Fury coursed through me, cold and controlled. If she thought she could do this and walk away unscathed, she was mistaken. The sound of the front door unlocking sent a jolt through my veins. I placed the phone back on the nightstand, wiped every emotion from my face, and turned toward the bedroom entrance. Footsteps neared, and then she stepped inside, radiating satisfaction. The scent of expensive perfume clung to her skin, but it wasn't mine. She froze when she saw me sitting there, eyes narrowing. "You're home early." I forced a smile, ignoring the taste of bile rising in my throat. "Yeah, thought I'd surprise you." Her gaze flickered to the phone, lips parting slightly before she masked her expression. A weak laugh escaped her. "You scared me." Not nearly as much as I was about to scare her. Standing, I approached her, sliding a hand around her waist. She didn't flinch. No guilt, no hesitation, just the confidence of a woman who believed she had gotten away with something. I leaned in, inhaling the perfume clinging to her neck, committing every detail to memory. "You look beautiful tonight," I murmured. Her smile returned, fingers trailing over my chest. "Thank you." I bit back the urge to push her away. Instead, I traced a hand along her back, watching the way her body responded. She had no idea what was coming. I pulled away, walking toward the bathroom. "I need a shower." Behind me, she exhaled, likely relieved. I shut the door, resting both hands on the sink, staring at my reflection. My pulse pounded against my skull, but I couldn't afford to act on impulse. No, this had to be precise. I turned the water on, letting the steam rise as I formed my plan. Tomorrow, everything would change. Morning arrived with a deceptive calm. Sunlight filtered through the curtains, painting streaks of gold across the room. She lay beside me, her breathing steady, peaceful, as if the weight of her betrayal didn't exist. My fingers twitched with the urge to wake her, to force her to face the truth I now carried. But no, patience would serve me better. Sliding out of bed, I moved silently, collecting my phone from the nightstand. Last night, I had scoured every message, memorized each whispered promise exchanged between them. Their affair wasn't fleeting. It was a carefully orchestrated deception, stretching back months. Lies woven seamlessly into our daily life. Dinner dates disguised as business meetings. Passionate nights hidden behind rehearsed excuses. The shower's distant hum signaled that she had risen. I scrolled through my contacts, stopping at the name of the man who had smiled in my face while stealing what was mine. My fingers hovered over the screen. A confrontation now would be reckless. No, I wanted destruction, not a mere argument. A soft voice broke through my thoughts. "You're up early." I turned, meeting her gaze as she stood in the doorway, wrapped in nothing but a towel. Droplets clung to her skin, the very skin he had touched. I forced a smile. Couldn't sleep much. She walked toward me, fingers grazing my arm. Something wrong? If only she knew. Instead of answering, I pulled her close, my lips pressing against her forehead. She melted into me, body relaxing, completely unaware that every tender touch I gave her now was a step toward her undoing. I was thinking, I murmured, running a hand down her back, we should do something special tonight. Just us. Her eyes flickered with something unreadable before she smiled. That sounds perfect. She lied effortlessly. I kissed her, pouring just enough emotion into it to keep my mask in place. If she suspected anything, she didn't show it. By the time she disappeared into the closet to dress, my plan was fully formed. The day passed in a blur of preparation. I made calls, set everything in motion, ensuring that by nightfall, her world would begin to crumble. She had built this facade brick by brick, and now I would tear it down. Evening arrived. She stepped into the living room dressed in a deep red gown, curves accentuated perfectly. Her beauty had always been undeniable. Shame it masked such ugliness underneath. "Ready?" she asked, smiling. I returned the expression. "More than you know." She had no idea that tonight her lies would unravel. The drive to the restaurant was silent, but not the comfortable kind. My hands gripped the steering wheel, veins pulsing with the anticipation of what was to come. She, oblivious to her impending downfall, scrolled through her phone, likely sending him one last message before our night began. When we arrived, I pulled her chair out like the devoted husband I once was. She smiled, completely unaware that every gesture was carefully calculated. "You're being extra sweet tonight," she teased, sipping the wine I had ordered for her. I leaned forward, studying the woman I had loved, the woman who had spit on everything we built. "You deserve it." She sighed, eyes glimmering. "I was thinking, maybe we should go away for the weekend. Just us. Somewhere quiet." The audacity. I tilted my head. That sounds perfect. Lies. Just as she reached for her glass again, her phone lit up on the table. I caught the name before she flipped it over. His name. My so-called friend. She hesitated for a fraction of a second before looking at me, waiting for a reaction. I gave her none. Instead, I reached for my own phone and sent a single message. Time. Her gaze lingered on me as if sensing something shifting in the air. Before she could question it, a commotion near the entrance stole her attention. She turned in her seat just as voices rose in protest. A waiter, one I had paid handsomely, walked through the dining area holding a tray. But instead of food, he carried something else, a series of glossy photographs. Every table he passed, he placed one down. Patrons picked them up, gasps echoing as they absorbed what they saw. A naked woman tangled in bedsheets, her face clear, the timestamp proving her betrayal. And beside her, the man who had called himself my friend. Her breath hitched. The waiter stopped at our table last, setting the final photograph down in front of her. She stared at it, face draining of color, fingers trembling as she flipped it over as if hoping for a different image. It was her body, her infidelity displayed for all to see. I took a slow sip of my wine, savoring the moment. The room was silent now. Eyes bore into her from all directions. Shame burned across her skin, lips parting in horror as she turned to me. "What? What did you do?" she whispered, voice barely audible. I set my glass down carefully. "I served justice, my love." She reached for my hand, desperation lacing her touch. "Please, we can talk about this." I pulled away. "Oh, we're far past talking." Tears welled in her eyes, but I felt nothing. She had already made her choice, and now she would live with the consequences. Her breaths came in short, panicked bursts. Eyes darted around the restaurant, searching for an escape, but there was none. Whispers slithered through the room like venomous snakes, each murmur tightening the noose around her. Shame. The man she had betrayed me for, my so-called friend, stood frozen near the entrance. His face was ashen, jaw clenched. He hadn't expected this. Neither had she. Slowly I stood, adjusting my cuffs with deliberate ease. "You look surprised," I murmured, my voice calm, controlled. "Did you really think I wouldn't find out?" She reached for me again, her fingers trembling. "Please," she choked out, her voice barely above a whisper. "We can fix this." I leaned in close enough that only she could hear. "Fix what?" My voice was ice. "Your lies. Your betrayal. The way you let him have you while coming home to me." She flinched as if struck, tears spilling over now. I had loved this woman once, with every piece of my soul, but love had turned to something else entirely. I straightened, turning toward the entrance where another familiar face had just arrived. The divorce attorney I had hired weeks ago. A man prepared to strip her of everything she held dear. "Meet me in my office tomorrow," he said smoothly, placing a folder on the table. "We'll finalize everything." Her lips parted, disbelief washing over her. You already filed." I nodded. "The papers are signed. You get nothing." Her hands flew to her mouth, a muffled sob escaping. Everything she thought she had was gone. Her reputation? Shattered. Her comfortable life? Over. I turned my gaze to the man still standing near the entrance. "And you," I said, watching him swallow hard. "I hope she was worth it." His silence spoke volumes. I slid my chair back, tossing a few bills on the table before looking at her one last time. "Goodbye, sweetheart." Then I walked out. As I stepped into the crisp night air, I inhaled deeply, feeling lighter than I had in months. Revenge wasn't just served, it was savored, and it had never tasted sweeter.